Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome to the show. It's 4:02 Pacific Time. Coming to you live from Rolla J Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon, in the home of Multnomah County. Where weed is no longer prosecuted. That's right. Our Multnomah County District Attorney, Rod Underhill, said his office will not pursue pending charges, nor will they be pursuing future charges for any marijuana violations that would be legal come this July 1st, 2015, under Measure 91. That means right now, I can possess 8 ounces of marijuana in this studio without a medical marijuana card, and the district attorney will not prosecute that. I could put 4 plants in my garage right now, and the district attorney will not prosecute that. Feels good to be legal. But we're not quite free yet. We're going to talk about that in the Radical Rant coming up after the next break. I'm going to talk about the long road from legal to equal, and my thoughts on, what it is like to have legalized marijuana here in Oregon. But before we get to that, I want to open up with this story that Jasiri X sent me. Out of West Palm Beach, Florida, from the Associated Press, a South Florida teen has been sentenced to 23 years in prison after he was tried as an adult for a shooting that occurred during an armed burglary. So my first problem with this is I really dislike the whole idea of charging juveniles as adults. Right? So it's like, all right, this kid, this teenager, 17. Now I admit 17's old, right? And maybe this argument carries more weight if I'm talking about a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old that's charged as an adult. But work with me on this one. Follow the Socratic jumps here. We're going to charge a kid as an adult. He's 17 years old. Under the law, at age 17, he can't enter into a contract. He can't vote. He can't buy cigarettes. He's a child. He's a minor. But he's capable of committing an act so criminally heinous that not only he must have had the adult knowledge and wits about him to know what he was doing was wrong, but also should pay an adult price for having done it. So why is it that a kid that demonstrates evil behavior beyond the pale can be treated as an adult, But if a kid demonstrated good behavior beyond the pale, he'd still be treated as a kid. Suppose the kid's 16 years old. He's one of them Doogie Howser types, right? He's graduated college at 16, has a PhD at 16, perfect driving record, as a teenage driver, never did wrong to nobody. We would never say, well, let's try that kid as an adult let's let that kid be an adult in the economic sphere. Let's let that kid be an adult in the rest of the adult world. It's only if they do something bad where we can punish them like adults, but we can't reward them like adults if they're exceptionally good. So I have that problem with it. But here's the real problem with this story. He was tried to an adult and sentenced to 23 years in prison for fatally shooting a police dog. Not a police officer, not another human being, 23 years in prison for shooting a dog. Not just a police dog, folks. He broke into the home of a Florida highway trooper. During the break-in, the 5-year-old German Shepherd who lived at the home was shot several times. The dog wasn't an active police dog. It was a retired police dog named Drake that had to be euthanized 5 days later. Now, I'm not saying don't punish a 17-year-old who breaks into someone's home with a gun and shoots their pet. I'm not saying that at all. But 23 years? He had previously rejected a plea deal that would have sent him to prison for 20 years. He said, 20 years, that's ridiculous. I'll go to court and fight it. Ends up getting 23. Meanwhile, the cops that break into the home of a regular person and shoot their dog, those cops never get reprimanded. Those cops never even lose a day's pay. But it's just as devastating to the person that owns the dog. Oh, and need I even bring up the fact that the kid tried as an adult and sentenced for 23 years for shooting a police dog is African American? I mean, that's a given, right?
Elitist. Just like any other dishwashing, burger flipping, public school educated, self-employed, bar band, musician, National Guardsman, he's Radical Russ.
And by a given, I don't mean it's a given that African Americans commit crime. It's a given that they're going to be charged and tried as an adult and given a far worse sentence than a white kid in a similar circumstance would have. Guarantee it. And just because it's a retired police dog, the courts are going to give a little more serious a sentence. Just once, I'd like to see a cop get this kind of sentence for shooting someone's pet.
.420 Radio, turning red states and blue states green.
Hey, what's up? This is Killer Mike, one half of Run the Jewels, and I'm telling you, November 23rd through 27th, you need to be at Cannabis Cup. I did it last year, and I got so high, I can tell you what color Jesus' furniture is. I got so high, I kissed the sky twice. I got so much enlightenment, I know Buddha's last name. Do you feel what I'm telling you right now? The people are great. You don't have to search or call your sketch-ass dealer who won't call you back. You don't have to go lurking through the hood to find good smoke. You need to get out of the country. You've been sitting on your block too long smoking weed. Get out and have an adventure. See you at Cannabis Cup, November 23rd through 27th. Yeah.
Gordon Green's Music Planet, every Wednesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 420radio.org.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
You can't handle
the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality in general.
How in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Or do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 11 after the hour. And, Oregon passed marijuana legalization a week ago today. And I may have had one of the more muted reactions to the passage of legalization. For one, I kind of thought it was going to happen. I'd been predicting all week it was going to be 54-46. Turned out 56-44. Turned out even better than I'd expected. But I was kind of expecting legalization to pass. And so maybe that's part of it. And another part of it just may be because I've lived in Portland, Oregon for a while, and I've had a medical marijuana card for a while. So that feeling, that icy cold feeling in the pit of your stomach when you see cop lights in the car behind you, not turned on, but just, there's a cop car behind you. Or that paranoid looking over your shoulder feeling when you got a bag of weed in your pocket and you're walking around town. I haven't had that for years, thanks to the medical marijuana program. I felt pretty safe. So that rush of feeling liberated maybe has just slowly, been worn down in me for a while. Because I kind of questioned myself, it's like, why am I not as thrilled about this as I should be? And that's not to say I'm not excited, not happy about it, but I didn't feel a visceral gut reaction like I did in 2012 when Colorado and Washington became the first states to legalize. That to me was the real breakthrough that anybody had ever legalized. Every state from that point on just kind of seems inevitable to me. Seems like dominoes falling. But what really, at the core of it, I think, is muting my reaction to legalization is the realization that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of my activism and my journey, and all of us on this journey for legalization, because it's a long road from legalization to equalization. And that's always been my goal, is to be treated as an equal despite my cannabis use. Not to be treated as a criminal is the first step. But once we've achieved the legality, there are so many other areas in which we still live in a Jim Crow society. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued in 1863. It took 145 years to get from there to the election of Barack Obama. And still, that doesn't mean that we've ended our struggle to end racial discrimination. That's a major milepost for sure. But this is an ongoing thing. We go from Emancipation Proclamation to sharecropping to ending Jim Crow segregation to the Civil Rights Act to further and further acceptance and so on. It's an ongoing journey, not any one particular win. So legalization in Oregon, yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm happy about it because now it gives us the platform from which to fight these more difficult battles of equalization. I've always said that a marijuana smoker should be treated no differently than a beer drinker or a cigar smoker. With alcohol, we've got this really dangerous, addictive drug that seriously clouds judgment, impairs physically, and generally leads to aggression. And we've figured out how to live with it. We figured out how it can be sold with dinner. It can be sold in grocery stores. It can be imbibed in taverns. We figured out how to live with it. And despite a lot of the drawbacks that come with it, Drunk driving, spousal abuse, puke in the streets, people pissing in the streets, whatever. Despite all that, we made a social judgment that, hey, we can accept these negatives to some degree in order to guarantee the freedom and equality of beer drinkers to enjoy themselves. So we've got a drug that changes the mind, alters the mind, and leads to negative social outcomes. And we've learned how to live with it. And we've got cigars or cigarettes. We've got a nasty habit that stinks, fouls up the air, that negatively affects people passively. Drinking doesn't have that, right? I can get drunk and it doesn't directly affect you. You're not going to get secondhand drunk. But there is secondhand smoke. So we should figure out how to deal with cannabis in the same way, equally. Cannabis does impair the mind and lead to negative social outcomes. Nowhere near the degree alcohol does. But it does, a little bit. And cannabis does have a secondhand smoke issue. It does kind of stink and annoy other people. Not nearly as bad as tobacco, but still. So marijuana is like the beer and tobacco light of social problems. We should be able to deal with it. We've already dealt with the two toughest ones on those two sides. So I won't rest until we have equal rights with beer drinkers and cigar smokers. Beer drinkers and cigar smokers don't have a possession limit. They can go to the store and buy as much of it as they want. They can buy a truckload of it. They can buy multiple kegs of it. They can store it in wine cellars. They can have all they want of it. So why should we cannabis consumers have limits on us? I understand we needed them in order to get legalization passed, but I'm not going to be satisfied with them until they're gone. Beer drinkers and tobacco users have places in public where they can use their drug. Now, for tobacco, it's shrinking, but there are still cigar clubs where you can go and smoke cigars. And there are plenty of taverns and restaurants and bars and open-air Oktoberfest beer festival type things. Wine tastings and wine tours. If those can exist for alcohol and tobacco, they can exist for cannabis. Why can we not have an open-air festival, clearly designated, bags checked, IDs checked, adults only, wristband coded like they do at a beer fest for marijuana? Why not? I won't stop until we get that. Beer drinkers don't get piss tested for a job that will fire them if they discovered they drank a beer a week ago. Now, if you come to your drug test drunk, maybe you don't get the job. But if you drank a beer a week ago, you're not going to lose the job. If you drank a beer a week ago, now if you're drunk on the job, you get in an accident, you might lose the job. But if you're on the job getting an accident, they found out you drank a beer a week ago, you're not going to lose the job. We deserve that same right. Same goes for scholarships and student aid. You drink beer, at least you're not getting in trouble drinking beer. You're not causing other crimes drinking beer. You're not going to lose your scholarship, but you do for getting caught for weed. DUIs. We can get DUIs for being unimpaired just because we have marijuana in our systems. Now, alcohol drinkers don't have a zero tolerance for marijuana, for alcohol in their systems. They can have up to 0.07 of it, and they're not automatically considered drunk. They have to demonstrate impairment. Why should there not be a assumption that a cannabis consumer is not impaired until they've demonstrated impairment? Now, we know the reasons why there can't be a limit for cannabis. It doesn't work like alcohol. But the presumption with alcohol is that you can have some alcohol in your system and still be okay to drive. Why is that presumption not given to marijuana? Beer drinkers can travel to other states. If I'm a beer drinker and I want to go to Idaho to visit my family, I can do that without much concern. As a cannabis consumer, I go from being legal in this state to being a criminal in that state. That's unequal protection right there. And as the case of Jim Clark and Tim Guerin and so many others have taught us, beer drinkers don't lose their chance at getting an organ transplant. Now, I know an alcoholic might lose his chance at a liver transplant if he's not clean and sober. I understand that. But just a casual drinker? Haven't heard many of those stories. people losing an organ transplant thanks to casual drinking. So that's why the road from legal to equal is such a long journey and gives us so much to work on. And we'll be here at the Russ Belville Show and on 420 Radio working this step by step, win by win, until we're all free and equal. You had a question, Mr. Horshack? Oh, my goodness. It's 420 in Portland, Oregon, America's cannabis capital. That's right, Denver. We're taking the crown. You know, Denver and Portland, just about the same size, aren't we? I think we can do it. We got Electric Bob when we come back. Some new electronic music for your daily Toker tunes right after this.
420 Radio. Tune in, turn on, get high.
Приветствую. Меня зовут Дани Денько. Мы от журнала High Times приглашаем вас в Амстердам с 23 до 27 ноября, чтобы вместить ежегодный турнир Cannabis Cup, уже 27-й по счету. Там мы сравним множество будов марихуаны и гашиша из местных кофешопов. Еще у нас там выставка товаров, семинары по выращиванию, ночные концерты и вручение премии за лучшие в мире сорта марихуаны. Билеты можно купить на сайте cannabiscup.com. Ждем вас!
If you're an adult who enjoys a good beer, there's a similar product you might want to know about. One without all the calories and serious health problems. Less toxic so it doesn't cause hangovers or overdose deaths, and it's not linked to violence or reckless behavior. Marijuana. Less harmful than alcohol, and time to treat it that way. For more information, visit marijuanaissafer.org.
Hey Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here for the Canador, a practical solution to keep herbs from drying. The Canador is the perfect airtight storage system for your fine herbs, from the half-inch thick walnut and cherry wood construction, clear top perforated jars for storage, and the humidity bead system that keeps your herbs at a perfect 65% relative humidity. I keep all my herbs in the Canador, and you should too. Check out Canador.com for more information.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour. Time for some daily Toker tunes from Electric Bob, our man in Arizona. He's unable to call in today, though, so I've got to bring you the tune. This one comes from Fidser. I don't know a thing about the artist, but Fidser, and the tune is entitled Got My Bottle. Enjoy.
Got my bottle. Got my bottle. Got my.
420 Radio, the world's voice of marijuana legalization. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. 420radio.org presents Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink from Atlanta, Georgia. Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink is an animated show taking you back to the days of bell-bottoms and roller disco, featuring the best funk, soul, and R&B music with your host, Big Daddy Fink. New Thursdays at 8 p.m. Pacific with replays at 5 and 8 Pacific Thursdays, and Friday nights a 2-hour marathon starting at 10 Pacific on 420radio.org. Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Music from Suichi Tarada. That's Yokozuna Beach Chillin'. Yokozuna Beach Chillin'. There we go. Japanese electronica. It's always fun trying to pronounce some of the names on the show. Welcome back. It's 29 and a half after the hour here at Toker Talk Radio, and I wanted to return to a story I didn't cover yesterday. I had it in the list, but ran out of time on it. This one's a look back at Proposition 19. Remember Prop 19? It just seems amazing that it was just 4 years ago, in 2010, when California was putting marijuana legalization on the ballot in the form of Proposition 19, the Regulate, Control, and Tax Cannabis Act. And in comparison to what we just legalized here in Oregon, where you get an ounce in public, 8 ounces at home, 4 plants at home, in comparison, Prop 19 was pretty limited. Prop 19 would have allowed the possession of an ounce and the cultivation of a 5-foot by 5-foot garden. And maybe you could get 4 plants in that, I suppose. But it wasn't, and it, you know, it was going to come with taxation and strict regulation as well. And it was just 4 years ago that California's Prop 19 failed by 7 points on Election Day. Amazing when you consider that Colorado and Washington, in 2 years later, won by 10 points. Alaska this year won by 4 points. Oregon won by 14 points. Am I doing the math right on that? Yeah, 14 points. And Washington, D.C. won by 38 points. What could have been so significantly different aside from the passage of time? Some people will point to the Northern California growers, the Emerald Triangle folks. Some folks will point at that and say, see, it was them. It was the Emerald Triangle, the growers, the medical marijuana people. They didn't want legalization. There might be some truth to that. Some of the opposition was there, but I don't believe in enough opposition to have derailed legalization. It was really confounding too Because when you looked at the polls going into Prop 19, it seemed very likely to pass. Just a month before the election in 2010, the Field poll and the Public Policy Institute of California polls had Prop 19 up by 7 and 11 points among respective likely voters. So a 7-point to 11-point lead that then turned into a 7-point loss. That's a reversal of 14 points at minimum, 18 points at maximum. How could that much public sentiment change in just a month for marijuana legalization? There were a few things that happened. Let's not forget that Governor Schwarzenegger signed a last-minute marijuana decrim bill. The idea behind that to try to take some of the wind out of the sails of proponents saying that marijuana, arrests are harming a lot of people. Well, let's decrim it, and then there's not so many arrests. But according to this piece in the Washington Post blog, the declining support for Prop 19 from late September to November 2010 coincided with strong statements of opposition from several prominent Democrats. Probably most notably, Attorney General Holder on October 15, 2010, said that the Obama administration will, quote, strongly opposes the initiative and, quote, will vigorously enforce the Controlled Substances Act against those individuals and organizations that possess, manufacture, or distribute marijuana for recreational use, even if such activities are permitted under state law, end quote. So the point of this Washington Post piece is that Democrats killed legalization in 2010. And here's how they back it up. They first of all show a lot of studies that show that political elites, what they say about initiatives and policies in general, can have a great pull on how people feel about those issues. But what they point out most significantly is that Democratic voters in California were especially likely to change their support for Prop 19 from September to October. While Republican opposition to Prop 19 remained relatively stable, Democratic support declined by 9 and 7 percentage points in the Field and Public Policy polls conducted during the final month of the campaign. The drop in Prop 19 support was particularly pronounced among the most politically interested Democrats. In September of 2010, 75% of highly interested Democrats supported the proposition. In October, it was just 60%. Meanwhile, support from Republicans and less informed Democrats remained relatively constant. Now, the account here, the idea here is that when they started hearing their Democratic senators and the Democratic president's attorney general weigh in against Prop 19 and threaten federal prosecution, that led Democrats away from the support. Now, trying to further this theory, they take a look at the figures for Democratic support in Washington, Colorado, Alaska, and Oregon. And what they find here is an amazing graph. And let me switch over to the video window here and give you a look at this graph in the Washington Post blog. This is the percentage of people voting for legalization based on the exit polling, with Republicans in red, Democrats in blue. In California's Prop 19, Democratic support was 56%. In Washington's I-502, it was 70%. Colorado's Amendment 64 was 74%. Alaska's Question 2 was 78%. And in Oregon's Measure 91, 79% of Democrats supported that legalization. Among Republicans, in all the states, it was generally around 30%, 30 to 33%, except Oregon, where only 22% of our Republicans supported legalization. So we had much greater Republican opposition in Oregon than we did in any other state. So this may just point out to those of you who've worried that in California, It's not the Republicans that we have to convince. It's the Democrats that we have to convince to get on board with legalization in 2016. I was on Bill Press's show the day after legalization, the morning after the legalization election. And Bill Press was a California state Democratic operative, and he talked about how he was going to personally try to move Governor Jerry Brown on this issue. Did Brown get reelected? See, I was so into the marijuana election that I didn't even follow governorships and all that. Let's see what Jerry Brown California election. Let's see. Jerry Brown currently serving and solidifies it. Yeah, historic fourth term as governor. All right, so Jerry Brown's going into his fourth term. He's oddly been anti-marijuana, which is weird when you think about the guy's past. I mean, he was called Governor Moonbeam back in his first term as governor, way back in the 70s. So, if we can get Governor Jerry Brown, some other high-profile Democrats to recognize. Now, Gavin Newsom, the lieutenant governor, has been great on this issue. California's two senators, Feinstein and Boxer, haven't been so good on the issue. But this is the time where the people who want legalization in California in 2016 need to start coming up with strategy and making alliances and political coalitions to make this a reality. California is the big prize. I believe that our opponents will muster a fight for California in 2016 like no anti-marijuana fight we've ever seen before. Sheldon Adelson, the billionaire who pumped all his money into Florida, probably have another Florida another Florida medical marijuana act to fight off in 2016. But I think he'll have plenty of money to throw at California as well. We'll see many entrenched interests pouring money into the fight against California legalization. So it's time for California Democrats to get on board with this and understand what most of the liberals in California want is legalization. That's their base. And if they can get away from listening to the prison guards unions and the narcotics officers associations and the chiefs of police unions and all of these entrenched interests that throw lots of campaign money around and hold a lot of political clout in California, if they can get past that, we can get legalization in 2016. And once legalization happens in California, it's all over but the shouting. Once California goes legal, once the entire Pacific time zone of America is legal marijuana territory, well, except for that northern part of Idaho, now that I think about it. But once the entire West Coast is legal marijuana, once most of the Northeast has gone to legal marijuana, it won't be long. And I believe by 2020, following victories in 2016, by 2020, the federal government will drop its opposition to marijuana, will drop its prohibition. That doesn't mean it'll be legal in Oklahoma or Texas immediately. They'll still have state laws against it, but we are entering the end days of federal prohibition, especially when California falls. Now, what we can do to hasten that day, those of us in Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Colorado, is to continue building responsible marijuana industries and setting standards, setting cultural norms within our cannabis community that don't tolerate passing weed to minors, that don't tolerate open public consumption where it's going to offend people easily. We can fight for our rights, and we should absolutely have the right to public consumption somewhere, in some places. But blowing pot smoke in someone's face isn't going to get us very far either. Every act we take, every action we engage in the legal marijuana states between now and 2016 is going to affect that California election.
America's R7 secret agent of progressive change.
The name's Belville. Russ Belville.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin. But don't go in. Golden words he will pour in your ear.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 45 after the hour here at Toker Talk Radio. That's Duran Duran with their version 2 remake of I Wanna Take You Higher, entitled I Wanna Take You Higher Again. Makes sense. Of course, the Sly and the Family Stone did the original tune. Here in Oregon, I tell you, the news is really heating up around marijuana. And it was already a pretty popular subject before, but you've seen the Denver Post that has opened up its own marijuana-themed website, The Cannabist. Washington State has a marijuana-themed, or not Washington State, I should say, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer has its own marijuana-themed blogs. I've seen them out of papers in California as well. In Oregon, you can find the Oregon marijuana news through the Oregonian at OregonLive.com/marijuana. And Noel Crumby's been the beat reporter for the marijuana industry pretty much, but there's been more people contributing reports as of late. This most recent story that's in our Oregon Live, Noel posted this one, what you need to know before you grow marijuana in Oregon. And in this, it mentions that starting July 1st, we're allowed to have 4 marijuana plants. Although I could argue here in Portland, you could have 4 marijuana plants now because the district attorney is not going to prosecute you for it. So with our 4 marijuana plants, there's a Southeast Portland medical marijuana dispensary called 50 Trees. Our area code here is 503, so get it, 50 Trees. They're a medical marijuana dispensary, and he spoke to Noel Crumby about the 4 strains that he's selling as clones: Northern Lights, Super Silver Haze, Mount Hood Magic, and, quote, a 4th with a profane name not suitable for print. And unfortunately, that could be a lot of plants. Think about it. He says he sells about 300 clones per month. And under Measure 91, when we do buy our clones, they're going to be taxed at $5 a clone. So one store selling 300 plants a month, $5 tax for that. That's $1,500 tax coming out of just one store selling clones. And the owner there, Joel Jennings, says we can't keep them in stock. But there's some important things to remember about, even though that we've legalized marijuana, and these are some things that are going to be of concern to some people. It remains a felony to grow marijuana within 1,000 feet of a school. Now, that's recreationally speaking. Okay, so even though you've got the right to grow 4 plants in your house, you got to check whether or not your house is within 1,000 feet of a school. Remember what I was talking about, equality and legality? I don't recall beer drinkers that home brew beer having to check whether or not their home basement is within 1,000 feet of a school. Now, practically speaking, how are you going to get busted? If you got your 4 plants in your house and within 1,000 feet of school, who's going to know? Who's going to go to the trouble of busting you for that? They can't get probable cause. Well, I guess, if you're within 1,000 feet of a school, maybe the seeds and stems in your garbage are probable cause. Now that I think about it. Have to talk to Leland Berger about that. He was quoted in the piece here. Maybe we'll get Lee on the air one of these days. Another point made in the article: if you're growing in your yard, your plants should be behind a fence or another barrier. It's a violation to grow in public view. So a lot of people talking about putting, marijuana on their balcony, putting it in their backyard or whatever. But if a cop can see it, he can write a ticket to you for it. Now, again, is there any sort of ticketing if the person's doing their home brewing outside and someone could see it? No. And is there an unintended consequence to this? If my backyard is in such a situation where it can't be private, does that motivate me then to grow indoors and, all of the energy cost and all of the contribution to climate change that might incur? I don't know. I think people maybe ought to keep their plants out of public view just for protection, just so someone's not jumping your fence and ripping you off like they've done to me. Now, the growing within 1,000 feet of a school, however, does not affect medical grows. Medical grows are not affected by that rule. So within 1,000 feet of a school, a patient can grow, but not a citizen. And that bothers me too. When I'm talking about this legality and equality stuff, I don't want just equality with beer drinkers and cigar smokers. I want it with medical marijuana patients too. But that's, again, another thorny political issue we'll deal with later. Under the new law, local communities can opt out of licensed and regulated marijuana production, processing, and sales, but local governments cannot ban home grows. So if you live somewhere that opts out of, pot shops and rec grows, you can still consume, possess, and grow your own marijuana at home. You can't grow it if you're within 1,000 feet of a school, though. And opting out, these local communities opting out, is not just the city council having a meeting and banning it. They have to actually have an initiative process and have the people vote for it in an election. Also, under the new Measure 91, you can give away marijuana and clones, but you cannot sell marijuana or clones unless you're licensed by the state. Cannot sell your clones, cannot sell marijuana. You can give them away, though. And maybe one of the most contentious things is that Measure 91 bans the production of marijuana concentrates or extracts at home. And it's mostly aimed at people that are doing BHO. But under the way the law is written, it applies to CO2 extractions as well, and alcohol extractions. This has a lot of people fuming because some people like to make alcohol tinctures, which is really extracting cannabis with alcohol, and is not one of those things that's at risk of serious explosion. Now, the banning of the BHO, making home BHO concentrates without a license, I'm for that. We got too many idiots who watch a video on YouTube and think they can blast openly and end up blowing up their apartment and getting us really, really bad press. So I was all for the BHO ban. But I think there should be a mechanism by which home concentrate makers can get licensed or permitted to make non-commercial concentrates. There ought to be a middle ground. Now, a lot of them I know will probably just go commercial. They'll just get their processor license and they'll do their thing, on a business scale. But I think there should be a way for someone to be able to produce their own concentrates, especially the alcohol concentrates, at home. Now, that's not licensed or regulated on the medical side. So we might have a situation where, again, an unintended consequence of the regulations will be to lead these illicit hash makers over to the medical program, even more so than they are already, just to avoid that proscription on making the home hash. There is a convenience store. I go by it every day when I'm walking my dog. It's 2 or 3 blocks away from the house here. And this convenience store is one of them head shop type of convenience stores, right? The candy bars might be a little stale and melted. The bags of chips might have some dust on the top of them. But the pipes and the bongs and the rolling papers and the little nitrous cartridges and the brass knuckles and the little folding knives and one of those kind of stores. Those fly off the shelf. They never get dusty. And one of their big sellers, big sellers, is not just cans of butane, right? Your regular, like this. Not just your regular old can of butane, right? But entire cases. Like there's boxes of these. 12, 18 to 24 in a box. And stacks of these boxes. And not just this brand, but like 4 or 5 different brands. Level 5, level 7, level 9, whatever it's called, right? Boxes of butane being sold out of this store. Now, folks, it's not because Portland's all hipster and everybody's using Zippo lighters or anything. Or fixing the Amen flame for their fireplace. This is because people are buying butane like crazy and open blasting it to make highly profitable hash oil. So this is definitely something that's going on, and as Measure 91 goes into effect, I'll bet you I don't see a significant drop in how much of that butane that convenience store is carrying. The ban on home hash making will be there for the next idiot who blows up his house, and it'll be there for the prosecutor to be able to slap some serious punishment on him. But I don't think it's going to make much of a dent in the people that are making hash oil. Now, the hash oil market here might be tougher to satisfy, because you'll be able to buy it in a store, and you'll be able to buy it from a reputable maker, and you'll know what the potency is, and it'll be pure and inspected and so forth. But that's not going to dent the hash oil market in Oklahoma or New York City or Miami or any place else where smuggling hash oil is extremely lucrative. One of the problems with mailing marijuana or smuggling marijuana is it's big, bulky, and smelly. Hash oil, on the other hand, these butters, these shatters, can be easily hidden, easily smuggled, and are fairly smell-proof. The purer they get, the less smell they got. So a small, easily smugglable hash oil that can sell for as much as $100 a gram on the East Coast. And, of course, here in Oregon, in Washington, Colorado, Alaska, perfectly legal to possess marijuana. One of the fears, one of the scare talking points of our opponents was how much possession amounts we'd be having and how much that would lead to diversion out of state. I don't think it's going to lead to much marijuana diversion out of state in comparison to how much hash oil gets diverted out of this state. And that means we're going to have to watch real carefully how this issue gets framed, how we move on from here. Hey, we had Duran Duran doing Sly. Let's go out with some Sly.
That's when I had most of my fun back. High, 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 high. Them summer days, those summer days.
All right. Well, Sly and the Family Stone there taking us out on a Tuesday. Coming up next, we have got more of that Electric Tuesday music for you. Bob hasn't put up a new show, so we'll just play some random music for you. And then 6 and 7 replays of these 2 hours, followed, of course, by 8 o'clock performance of our Electric Tuesday music hour. Coming up on our show tomorrow, join us where we go all the way out to Belgium. We'll be spiking with Michael Deegans from Belgium's Mambo Social Club, getting us some information from Europe on what's happening in their reform. Thursday, we've got Patrick Heinz from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And another great guest on Friday. We're here every weekday, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down.
Hey, what's up? This is Killer Mike, one half of Run the